Commander Vex-9 adjusted his secondary breathing apparatus and stared at the holographic display floating before his 4 eyes. The Galactic Military Academy's enrollment records scrolled past in neat, organized columns, species classifications, combat specializations, behavioral assessments. Everything was perfectly standardized, perfectly predictable, until he reached the human application. By the 7 suns, he muttered, his mandibles clicking nervously. What in the void is this? The application belonged to one Corporal Luna Martinez, formerly of the Terran Marine Corps. Her combat record was extensive, disturbingly extensive. 12 active war zones, 47 confirmed kills, and a commendation list that read like a military dictionary. But what made Vex-9's respiratory slits flutter with concern was the section labeled Reason for Academy Enrollment. Educational purposes. Educational purposes. The human had classified her entire military background, including advanced close-quarters combat training, weapons mastery, and what appeared to be something called advanced interrogation techniques, under the academic category of cultural exchange and learning enhancement. Vex-9's assistant, a nervous Quellan named Pip-7, shuffled his tentacles anxiously. "Sir, should we deny the application? The Academy has very strict policies about violence and—" "No," Vex-9 interrupted, his voice carrying the weight of someone who had made a terrible decision and was about to commit to it anyway. "The regulations clearly state that any being seeking educational advancement cannot be denied based on previous military service. Besides," he added with what he hoped was confidence, "what's the worst that could happen? It's an academy for learning, not a battlefield." 3 months later, Vex-9 would remember those words and curse his past self's optimism. The Galactic Military Academy was a marvel of engineering and diplomacy. Built on the neutral moon of Sanctus Prime, it housed over 10,000 cadets from 97 different species. The architecture was designed to accommodate everyone from the methane-breathing Zephyrians to the crystalline lithoids. Peace, understanding, and educational excellence were the Academy's core values, which made the current situation in Dormitory Block 7 particularly problematic. She did what? Vex-9's voice cracked through 3 different vocal cords simultaneously. Security Chief Kral 8, a massive Droken with scales that shifted color based on his stress levels, was currently a fascinating shade of panic purple. The human has educated 7 cadets in the past week. Educated? That's what she calls it, sir. Each incident has been filed under different educational categories. The first was practical demonstration of Terran defensive techniques. The second was interactive lesson on human anatomy and leverage points. The third— Stop. Vex-9 held up a manipulator appendage. Are you telling me that Corporal Martinez is beating up other cadets and calling it education? Kral 8's scales deepened to a shade of purple that didn't exist in nature. Not beating up, sir. According to her reports, she's providing valuable learning experiences in cross-species physical interaction and conflict resolution through practical application. The sound that emerged from Vex-9's throat was somewhere between a growl and a whimper. Show me the security footage. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the Academy's main recreation area. Cadets of various species mingled peacefully, engaging in what the Academy promotional materials called harmonious intercultural exchange. The scene was idyllic, until Luna Martinez walked into frame. She was smaller than most of the other cadets, standing barely 5.5 feet tall. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation military bun, and she moved with the fluid grace of someone who had spent years learning how to kill things efficiently. She was also, Vex-9 noted with growing dread, smiling. "Oh no," he whispered. The trouble started when a group of Valdorian cadets, each standing nearly 8 feet tall and built like mobile fortresses, began what appeared to be a friendly conversation with the human. The Valdorians were known for their strength and their slightly condescending attitude toward smaller species. They were also known for their complete inability to recognize when they were about to make a catastrophic mistake. The largest Voldorian, a cadet named Thunk Prime, leaned down toward Luna with what his species probably considered a charming grin. His mouth was full of teeth that could crush titanium. "Little human," his voice boomed across the recreation area, "perhaps you would benefit from learning proper respect for your physical superiors. We could teach you your place in the academy hierarchy." Luna's smile grew wider. "Oh, I'd love to learn about hierarchy. Would you mind demonstrating the proper position for someone of your intellectual capacity?" Thunk Prime's brain, which was admittedly not his species' strongest feature, took several seconds to process the insult. When it finally clicked, his face darkened to an impressive shade of angry orange. "You dare mock me, tiny creature?" "Mock you?" Luna's voice carried the innocent tone of someone who had just discovered a new and fascinating specimen. "I would never mock you. I'm simply offering you an educational opportunity to learn about human cultural practices." "What kind of cultural practices?" Thunk Prime demanded, his massive fists clenching. Luna's grin became positively predatory. "Well, where I come from, we have this wonderful tradition called teaching manners to bullies. It's very interactive." What happened next would become legendary in Academy history, though the official reports would always list it as Incident GMA 7734, this practical demonstration of Terran conflict resolution methodologies. Thunk Prime lunged forward with all the subtle grace of a crashing cargo freighter. Luna simply wasn't there anymore. She had moved with fluid precision, stepping aside at the last possible moment and extending one leg in what she would later describe as a basic mobility awareness exercise. Thunk Prime's forward momentum carried him directly into the Academy's pride and joy, a sculpture representing the unity of all species, carved from a single piece of rare Zentorian marble and worth approximately 7 million credits. The sculpture exploded. Marble fragments scattered across the recreation area like expensive confetti. Thunk Prime lay in the ruins, groaning and covered in dust. His two companions stared in shock before turning their attention to the small human, who was now stretching casually as if she had just finished a light workout. "Who wants to learn about advanced balance techniques?" Luna asked cheerfully. The second Voldorian, showing the kind of learning disability that was apparently genetic in his species, charged forward with a roar that shook the walls. Luna waited until he was almost upon her, then demonstrated what she called the educational value of redirected momentum. She grabbed his outstretched arm, pivoted on her heel, and used his own force to send him flying across the recreation area. He crashed into a group of floating meditation pods used by the gaseous ethereals, creating a chain reaction of collisions that sent glowing clouds of confused aliens drifting in all directions. "Fascinating," Luna commented, watching the chaos unfold. "I'm learning so much about cause and effect relationships." The third Voldorian, displaying a survival instinct that his species had apparently not completely bred out, began backing away slowly. I think I understand the lesson now." "Oh, but we're just getting started," Luna said, advancing toward him with the patient expression of a teacher who had found an eager student. "Don't you want to learn about pressure points? I know 47 different ways to temporarily disable someone without causing permanent damage." "Well, 46 ways. The 47th one is a little permanent, but we won't worry about that today." The Voldorian's retreat accelerated into a full sprint. By the time Academy security arrived, Luna was sitting peacefully on a bench, filling out an incident report with meticulous handwriting. Around her, the recreation area looked like a battlefield. Debris from the destroyed sculpture was scattered everywhere, meditation pods floated aimlessly through the air, and Thunk Prime was still unconscious in a pile of marble dust. Corporal Martinez, Security Chief Kral 8, began, his scales cycling through several shades of confusion. What exactly happened here? Luna looked up from her report with bright, innocent eyes. "I was conducting an educational demonstration on interspecies conflict resolution, sir. As you can see from my documentation, I've classified this as a practical lesson in physics, anatomy, and social dynamics." She held up her report. Every line was filled out in perfect Academy protocol format. Under incident type, she had written educational activity, practical learning exercise. Under participants, she had listed herself as instructor and the 3 Voldorians as eager students. But they're unconscious, Kral 8 protested, his scales now a color that existed somewhere between purple and ultraviolet. Learning can be exhausting, Luna replied seriously. I'm sure they'll wake up with a much better understanding of proper social interaction protocols. In the security office, Vex 9 paused the holographic playback and stared at his assistant. She's been here for 3 days. Yes, sir. 3 days, and she's already destroyed a priceless artifact, hospitalized 3 cadets, and somehow made it all technically legal under Academy regulations. Yes, sir. And according to her file, she's classified as a non-combatant academic exchange student. Yes, sir. Vex 9 felt a migraine building behind his primary eyes. What's her next class? Pip 7 consulted his datapad nervously. Advanced Diplomatic Theory, sir. Professor Quill 9 is teaching a course on peaceful negotiation techniques. Cancel it. Sir. Cancel all of her classes. In fact, cancel all classes in any building she might theoretically visit. Better yet, let's just evacuate the entire academy and have everyone attend classes remotely for the next decade or so. But it was too late. The damage was already done. Word of the educational incident had spread throughout the academy with the speed of gossip in a closed system. Every cadet now knew that the small human in Block 7 had single-handedly defeated 3 Voldorians while somehow remaining technically within Academy regulations. The reactions were varied and predictable. The Voldorians as a species were deeply offended and demanded formal combat trials to restore their honor. The Ethereals were fascinated by the physics demonstrations and wanted to study Luna's movement patterns. The Zephyrians, who communicated through chemical signals, were producing pheromones that roughly translated to "holy crap. Did you see that?" And the humans already enrolled in the academy. They were proud as hell. "Did you hear about Martinez?" Cadet Jake Sullivan asked his bunkmate, a Tritonian named Splash 3. "She's making the whole species look good." "I heard she's teaching advanced combat techniques," Splash 3 replied, his gills fluttering with excitement. "Do you think she'd give private lessons?" "Are you insane? She'd probably classify it as educational enrichment through hands-on learning and put you in the medical bay for a week. Worth it." The conversation was interrupted by the Academy's intercom system crackling to life. "All cadets report to the main auditorium immediately. We have an announcement regarding new educational protocols." As thousands of cadets began filing toward the auditorium, Luna Martinez sat in her small dormitory room, reviewing her academy handbook. She had highlighted several interesting passages, including Section 47.3, Educational Activities that Promote Cross-Species Understanding, and Section 52.8, Practical Applications of Theoretical Knowledge. She smiled as she read Section 61.4, Advanced Independent Study Programs. "This is going to be fun," she murmured to herself, and began planning her next lesson. The main auditorium of the Galactic Military Academy could hold 12,000 beings comfortably. Today it held 12,000 very uncomfortable beings and one human who looked like she was enjoying the show. Academy Director Zephyr Prime, an ancient celestial whose species had been mediating conflicts since before most civilizations had invented fire, stood at the podium with all the dignity he could muster. His translucent blue form shimmered with barely contained frustration. "Fellow cadets," he began, his voice carrying the musical tones that made Celestials such effective diplomats, "we have gathered today to address recent educational innovations that have occurred within our peaceful institution." Every eye, sensor, and detection organ in the auditorium turned toward Luna Martinez, who sat in the third row with a notebook and what appeared to be genuine interest in the proceedings. "The Academy has always prided itself on fostering learning through peaceful means," Zephyr Prime continued, his glow flickering slightly. However, it has come to our attention that certain interpretations of our educational guidelines may be overly creative. A ripple of what humans would recognize as nervous laughter swept through the audience. Luna raised her hand. "Director Zephyr Prime, sir? I have a question about the educational philosophy statement in section 12.7 of the Academy Charter." Zephyr Prime's glow dimmed considerably. "Yes, Corporal Martinez. The Charter states that all learning experiences should be memorable and impactful. I was wondering if there are any specific metrics for measuring impact, because I have some ideas for increasing retention rates." The director's form flickered like a dying light bulb. We will address specific educational methodologies at a later time. For now, we are implementing new guidelines. "Oh, that's perfect." Luna interrupted, her enthusiasm radiating like a weapons charge. "I've been developing a curriculum for advanced practical applications. Would you like to see my lesson plans?" From his seat in the administrative section, Commander Vex 9 watched the exchange with the horrified fascination of someone witnessing a slow-motion disaster. His 4 eyes tracked Luna's movements as she pulled out a thick folder labeled Educational Enhancement Proposals. "She's been here for a week," he whispered to himself. "How does she already have lesson plans?" The answer came sooner than he expected. "I call it accelerated learning through experiential problem solving," Luna announced, standing up and addressing the entire auditorium. "The basic concept is that theoretical knowledge becomes truly meaningful when applied in high-stress, real-world scenarios." A Tralaxian cadet in the front row raised a tentacle. "What kind of scenarios?" Luna's smile could have powered a small starship. "Well, for example, yesterday I helped Cadet Grom 8 from Dormitory Block 5 gain a much deeper understanding of spatial awareness and personal boundaries." Every being in the auditorium turned to look at Grom 8, a massive Brontarian whose species was known for their incredible strength and their complete inability to gauge their own size relative to others. He was currently sporting what appeared to be a very educational black eye. "She taught me about leverage," Grom 8 said in a voice that sounded like grinding stone, "and physics, and why it's impolite to block doorways when smaller beings need to pass through." "See?" Luna beamed. "Practical application of multiple academic disciplines in a single lesson. That's what I call educational efficiency." Director Zephyr Prime's glow was now barely visible. "Corporal Martinez, while we appreciate your enthusiasm for learning, the Academy has strict protocols regarding physical contact between cadets." "Oh, absolutely," Luna agreed. "That's why I always file proper documentation. Every interaction is carefully categorized under appropriate educational headings." Yesterday's lesson with Cadet Grom 8 was classified under practical engineering, applied physics and structural analysis. She held up another report, this one somehow even more thoroughly documented than the first. "I've also been developing a new program called Cultural Sensitivity Training Through Immersive Experience. It's designed to help cadets understand different perspectives by literally putting them in new positions." The auditorium fell silent except for the sound of various species breathing apparatus working overtime. "What kind of positions?" asked a brave Aquarian cadet, whose voice bubbled through his water-filled helmet. Luna's expression took on the patient look of a teacher explaining a simple concept to a slow student. "Well, for instance, many larger species have difficulty understanding the challenges faced by smaller beings. Through my program, they can experience firsthand what it feels like to be, let's say, horizontally oriented and looking up at the ceiling while reconsidering their life choices." Commander Vex 9 felt his sanity beginning to fray at the edges. "She's describing assault and calling it cultural education. The best part," Luna continued, "is that the program is completely voluntary. Participants self-select by engaging in behaviors that demonstrate their need for enhanced perspective training." "What behaviors?" Director Zephyr Prime asked, though his tone suggested he really didn't want to know. "Oh, you know, the usual indicators of educational opportunity. bullying smaller students, making inappropriate comments about species differences, blocking access to facilities, that sort of thing. It's like they're practically begging for learning experiences. A Centaurian cadet in the back raised a crystalline appendage. What if someone doesn't want to participate in your educational programs? Luna looked genuinely puzzled. Why wouldn't they want to learn? Education is supposed to be for everyone. Besides, I found that the cadets who most need education are often the least likely to seek it out voluntarily. That's why immersive learning is so effective. But what if they refuse? The Centaurian pressed. Oh, they can't refuse, Luna replied cheerfully. That would be discriminatory. The Academy Charter clearly states that all educational opportunities must be equally available to all students regardless of species, size, or personal preference. Denying someone access to learning based on their reluctance would violate about 6 different equality statutes. The silence that followed was the kind of quiet that occurs when an entire auditorium full of beings simultaneously realizes they are trapped in a nightmare of bureaucratic logic. Security Chief Krull 8 leaned over to whisper in Vex 9's auditory receptor. Sir, she's technically correct. The regulations do state that educational opportunities cannot be denied based on personal preference. She's weaponized the Academy Charter, Vex 9 whispered back, his voice carrying a note of horrified admiration. She's turned our own rules into a combat manual. On stage, Director Zephyr Prime was making a valiant attempt to regain control of the situation. While we appreciate innovative approaches to learning, the Academy must maintain certain standards of safety and— Oh, safety is my top priority, Luna interrupted. I always make sure that participants in my educational programs receive appropriate medical attention afterward. The Academy medical staff has been incredibly helpful in documenting the learning outcomes. She gestured toward the medical section, where Chief Medical Officer Helix 7 was slumped in his chair with the expression of someone who had given up on life. Dr. Helix 7 and I have been collaborating on a comprehensive study of the physical effects of accelerated learning. We've documented improved reflexes, enhanced spatial awareness, and significantly increased respect for personal boundaries among program participants. They're all in the medical bay, Helix 7 said in a voice that sounded like it had been drained of all hope. Every single one of them. I've treated more educational injuries in the past week than I usually see in a year. Learning can be challenging, Luna acknowledged sympathetically, but the results speak for themselves. Have you noticed any reduction in disciplinary incidents involving the participants? Helix 7 paused, his expression shifting from despair to confusion. Actually, yes, the cadets who've been through your programs have shown remarkable improvement in their behavior toward other students. See. Luna turned back to the auditorium with the triumphant expression of someone who had just proven a point. Educational success measured by behavioral improvement and increased social awareness. That's what I call effective teaching. A murmur ran through the assembled cadets. It was true. The Academy's most problematic students had indeed become significantly more polite and considerate after their encounters with Luna's educational methodologies. The Voldorians haven't started a single fight since their lesson, whispered a Aquarian cadet. Grom 8 actually said excuse me when he walked past my table yesterday, added a Tralaxian. The Brontarian wrestling team has been helping smaller students reach high shelves, observed Ethereal, his gaseous form shimmering with surprise. Director Zephyr Prime's glow flickered as he processed this information. Are you suggesting that your educational methods have actually improved Academy discipline? I'm not suggesting anything, Luna replied with the modest tone of someone who absolutely was suggesting everything. I'm simply documenting measurable improvements in student behavior following exposure to practical learning experiences. She held up yet another report, this one thick enough to use as a weapon. I've been tracking behavioral metrics across 17 different categories. The results are quite impressive. Commander Vex 9 felt reality beginning to bend around him. She's turned violence into an academic discipline with measurable outcomes. The data is very encouraging, Luna continued, flipping through her report. Incidents of bullying are down 73%. Unauthorized physical contact has decreased by 81%. And respect for academy property has improved by an astonishing 94%. How is that possible? Demanded a Droken cadet whose scales were cycling through colors of disbelief. Simple, Luna explained. When students understand the practical consequences of their actions through hands-on experience, they develop a much deeper appreciation for appropriate behavior. It's basic educational psychology. But you're beating them up, protested a Quellan whose tentacles were writhing with indignation. Luna's expression became hurt and confused. I'm not beating anyone up. I'm providing intensive, personalized instruction in conflict resolution, spatial awareness, and social dynamics. The fact that these lessons sometimes involve physical demonstrations is simply a reflection of the kinesthetic learning preferences of certain species. She pulled out another section of her report. I've actually customized my teaching methods based on individual learning styles. The visual learners get demonstrations. Auditory learners get detailed explanations. And kinesthetic learners get hands-on experience with practical applications. What about species that learn through pain? Asked a masochistic mollusk whose question was probably meant to be sarcastic. Oh, those are my favorite students, Luna replied with genuine enthusiasm. They're so motivated to learn. I've developed some wonderful lesson plans specifically for pain-based learning modalities. The mollusk's expression suggested he was reconsidering his life choices. The point is, Luna continued, addressing the entire auditorium, education should be accessible to everyone, regardless of their preferred learning style or their initial resistance to new concepts. My programs are designed to meet students where they are and take them where they need to go. Where they need to go is the medical bay, muttered Security Chief Kral 8. Exactly. Luna beamed. And think about how much they learn during the healing process. Recovery time provides excellent opportunities for reflection and internalization of key concepts. Director Zephyr Prime's form had dimmed to barely perceptible levels. Corporal Martinez, while your results are undeniably effective, we must consider the broader implications of your educational methodologies. Of course, Luna agreed. That's why I've developed a comprehensive expansion plan. The auditorium fell silent with the kind of quiet that precedes either revelation or apocalypse. Expansion plan? Zephyr Prime asked weakly. I'm calling it Academy-wide Educational Enhancement Initiative, Luna announced, her voice carrying the excitement of someone who had just discovered fire. Based on the success of my pilot programs, I'm proposing to extend personalized learning experiences to all cadets who demonstrate need for additional educational support. She gestured toward a holographic display that materialized above the auditorium. I've identified over 300 cadets who would benefit from intensive remedial education in areas such as respect, courtesy, and appropriate social interaction. The display showed a detailed map of the academy with red dots marking the locations of every bully, troublemaker, and generally unpleasant individual on the station. Each candidate has been assessed based on behavioral indicators and educational requirements, Luna continued. I've developed customized lesson plans for different species and learning styles with estimated completion times ranging from 15 minutes to 3 hours, depending on the complexity of the behavioral modifications required. 3 hours? Squeaked a Tralaxian cadet. Oh, that's just for the really stubborn cases, Luna assured him. Most students show significant improvement within the first 30 minutes of intensive instruction. Commander Vex 9 stared at the display in horror. She's planning to systematically educate every problem student in the academy. The beauty of the system, Luna explained, is that it's completely self-regulating. Students who demonstrate mastery of appropriate behavior don't require additional instruction. Those who continue to exhibit problematic behaviors automatically qualify for advanced educational opportunities. You're describing a reign of terror, whispered an ethereal cadet. I'm describing a comprehensive educational program with built-in quality control measures, Luna corrected. The Academy Charter requires us to provide appropriate educational support to all students. This system ensures that no one falls through the cracks. Director Zephyr Prime made one last desperate attempt to maintain control. Corporal Martinez, while we appreciate your dedication to educational excellence, the Academy must maintain certain standards. Oh, absolutely, Luna interrupted. That's why I've prepared a full compliance report demonstrating how my programs exceed all Academy standards for educational effectiveness, student safety, and measurable outcomes. She produced a final document that was so thick it required anti-gravity supports to hold it up. I've cross-referenced every Academy regulation, educational guideline, and safety protocol. My programs are not only compliant with all existing rules, they actually surpass Academy standards in most measurable categories. The auditorium stared at the massive document with the kind of awe usually reserved for natural disasters or acts of divine intervention. The report includes detailed statistical analysis, peer-review documentation, and comprehensive safety protocols, Luna continued. I've also included recommendations for institutional changes that would improve educational efficiency across all Academy programs. What kind of institutional changes? Zephyr Prime asked, though his tone suggested he was asking purely out of morbid curiosity. Well, for starters, I recommend redesigning the Academy's disciplinary system to focus on educational remediation rather than punitive measures. Instead of detention or suspension, problem students would be enrolled in intensive practical learning programs. She gestured toward her holographic display. I've calculated that Academy-wide implementation of my educational methodologies would reduce disciplinary incidents by 85%, while simultaneously improving academic performance, social cohesion, and institutional pride. How? Asked a Zentorian cadet who was apparently a glutton for punishment. Simple, Luna replied. When students understand that inappropriate behavior leads to immediate, intensive, and highly memorable educational experiences, they develop a natural motivation to excel in their regular coursework. It's basic behavioral psychology. She smiled at the assembled cadets with the benevolent expression of someone who had just solved all the Academy's problems. By providing comprehensive learning opportunities before problems escalate, we create a positive feedback loop that benefits everyone. The silence that followed was broken by a single, slow clap from the back of the auditorium. Then another, and another. Within moments, the entire human contingent of the Academy was applauding enthusiastically. They were joined by many of the smaller species who had been frequent targets of bullying. Even some of the reformed troublemakers were clapping, though with the careful restraint of beings who had learned the value of appropriate enthusiasm. Any questions? Luna asked cheerfully. 3,000 hands, tentacles, appendages, and sensory organs shot into the air. Luna's smile grew wider. This is going to be the best semester ever. Commander Vex 9 buried his face in his manipulator appendages and wondered if it was too late to request a transfer to a nice, quiet posting. Maybe somewhere peaceful, like an active war zone,